Hello and welcome to the Heresy Lodge. I am your host Dylan Cooper with our constant co-host over here.
Gavin Franklin.
And guys, we are here today to talk about deciding your army for Warhammer 40k.
Yeah, it's kind of the first step really. We kind of went over previously how everything you're going to need to get started, and one of them was to start collecting box. So the question is, what do you start collecting?
Right.
And there's probably 16 other YouTube videos that are very similar to the one that we're about to do.
But ours is better.
Of course, ours is always the best. We are going to touch on a few different topics of each of the individual armies that you can choose. We're going to touch on their lore a little bit. We're going to touch on their play style, and we're going to touch on how competitive they are currently. Now, big disclaimer on this. I think it's always a really bad idea to choose an army based off their current competitive standing.
Yeah, because you never know, especially like right now, we just had two new codexes releasing pretty much a new codex every month.
Mm-hmm.
So literally every month it's going to change.
The meta changes frequently, and if you're new to the game especially, I don't think it's a good idea to chase that meta. There's definitely people out there that play Warhammer competitively that will buy a new army completely painted, ready to go when it's good. I don't think that that's the best way to go ever, but I definitely don't think that's the best way to go for a new player. So I think the most important things to look at are the lore behind the army, how they play, how you want to play, and make sure that's about the same thing, and also how the models look.
Yeah. So how I got into it was actually Gavin literally sent me like 30 screenshots of like everything. It was like, look over these, tell me what you like. And I told him, I was like, I really like the Grey Knights, and I think I picked like a random...
I think it was Imperial Knights.
Yeah, maybe Knights or something, and he was like, which do you like better? And I was like, I think the Grey Knights are really cool. Mm-hmm. Lo and behold, I now have a Grey Knight army.
There you go. So, without further ado, I think we're just going to step in and go over each of the possible armies you can purchase. And we'll start with the Imperial part.
Okay.
And start with Space Marines. So, Space Marines are kind of interesting. When you go to the store, you can buy a Space Marine box, and you can build it into any chapter you want. You can make your own chapter. It could be an existing chapter. All the existing chapters are going to have their own unique rules. Some existing chapters are even going to have their own codexes.
Yeah.
So it's very out there depending on what you want to play, but all of them are going to be the same models. You just paint them differently. The only difference between chapter and chapter is going to be named characters, pretty much, and they'll have their unique models there. So let's start off with one Space Marine chapter. The first one I have written down is the most popular, the Ultramarines. So
every single box you see, basically, with the big old blue soldier, that's your Ultramarine right there.
So kind of the lore behind the Ultramarines is they are the largest legion out of any legion that includes traitors and loyalists. Their Primarch Rabute Guilliman is kind of like the diplomat of all of the Primarchs. He's very good at writing laws and establishing governments. So his territories always have a really high compliance rate to the Imperium because they're really good at establishing that. And they have kind of like this Roman culture.
Yeah, and you'll see that like they have like the little like, is it Omega? Is that what their symbol?
Something like that.
They have like the little Omega symbol on all their armor.
Mm-hmm. As far as how they play, the Ultramarines are very flexible. I would say they're more shooty than anything. They're very good at shooting, but you can do all kinds of stuff with them right now. You'll see that's kind of the way a lot of Space Marines are. I'd say Ultramarines lean more towards the shooting side of things, but all Space Marines can be flexible. They can be durable. They can be played as elites. You can bring tanks. It's really hard to make Space Marines a horde army, so if you're looking for that, Space Marines are not the way to go. But they can do a lot of different stuff. The next up, we have the White Scars. White Scars are fast. Pretty much how the White Scars work.
Yeah, they're your Genghis Khan.
Yeah, they're really cool. So they're really big on using jet bikes. They have this really cool concept in the game where you can advance and charge. So if you want to get across the table and beat in your opponent's face, the White Scars is kind of the way to go. And you want to play Space Marines, that is for sure for you. So they do kind of have that Mongolian culture about them. A lot of them have hawks following them around. They're really big on their bikes and stuff like that. And I really like the White Scars.
Yeah, they're cool. They're cool looking, and they have awesome lore.
Painted in like a white, that would be the probably hardest ones to paint though, I feel like. So if you want to paint the White Scars, you really, I think, need to be airbrushing majority of the time. Then we have the Raven Guard. So the Raven Guard are a really unique Space Marine chapter. You can do pretty much anything that you can in other chapters with the Raven Guard, but they benefit very greatly from things like getting additional cover or being able to redeploy in the beginning of the game to confuse your enemies on where you're starting and where you're ending up. So they can do a lot of sneaky shenanigans. So if you're into that and not necessarily being a powerhouse at shooting or a powerhouse at defense, but more like outmaneuvering and outthinking your opponent, the Raven Guard is a really cool one to go with. And they're kind of cool models. They also get a lot of snipers. They're really big on snipers as well. So kind of an option there. Then we have Blood Angels. Blood Angels are really good in combat.
They also look cool.
They do. They have really cool models. The Sanguinor models, they have wings. So they kind of get their own unique models as well as some of the other chapters. But they have the Sanguinary Guard. Really, really good in close combat. Not amazing at getting there like the White Scars. They get to add a little bit to their advances and charges, but they don't get to advance and charge, which is a big difference. So if you're looking for troops that you want to have a bit more of a harder time delivering into combat, but once they're there, holy shit, it's going to be rough, that is the Blood Angels for you. A little bit of background on the Blood Angels. Their Primarch is Sanguinius. They are kind of like space vampires.
Yeah.
They fall into this kind of bloodthirsty rage where they, one, drink blood, and two, go into this crazy, I'm going to kill everything mode.
The blood rage.
And they have to put them down because of that. So that's kind of an interesting army, really interesting lore. They have a really cool character, Dante. Like most of the Blood Angel characters are super badass, so really fun to look into. You know the Space Wolves. Who doesn't know the Space Wolves?
Yeah, Space Wolves, awesome. They have their own models as well. A lot of them have like fur, like felt fur.
Fur?
Yes, fur pelts.
Pelts.
I put
Pelts.
those words backwards, but yes, they have fur pelts. Maybe, I don't know.
Not felts. Just fur pelts.
Yeah, pelts.
Yeah. So, I don't think they're super competitive right now. But one of the cool things about Space Wolves is they have really cool models. They ride on wolves.
Mm-hmm.
You have Bjorn the Fell-Handed doing some crazy shit. They get some really cool Psyker looking models as well. So Games Workshop has put a lot of loves in the Space Wolves. And if you guys don't know about the Space Wolves, they are essentially space Vikings. And they are under Lehman Russ, who's a fucking badass.
Yes, he is.
And it's just overall it's like, kind of awesome. So
Yeah.
Awesome models, awesome lore. Like you'll never run out of Space Wolf lore. They tend to be one of the legions that Games Workshop dedicates a lot of time and effort to. And they're really just space Vikings, and they have that brutal mentality, the savagery about them.
They also like to drink and have fun.
Yeah, they're the only. I think they're the only legion that like developed a drink that literally has to shut down one of their organs that ignores alcohol, so they can get drunk.
Them super livers.
That's the way to go. Next up for them, we have the Salamanders. So Salamanders are my favorite legion. Get painted in a cool green. I really like their color scheme.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So the Salamanders are really big on using flamers. They're also very durable. So they're hard to kill. They're hard to charge because they have flamers.
And the cool thing about flamers is they don't miss.
Yeah, they can't miss. So I would say if you're looking into something like that, they follow Vulcan, and they're very as far as their lore goes. They were part of Isfam 5, like the Raven Guard, so a lot of them got wiped out. And they're also a part, they're kind of like this super human-esque legion.
Yeah, they're very moral, would be the right way to say it. They really care about like humanity and protecting people.
Yeah, I would say they're probably the nicest of the nice guys.
Yeah.
When you look at the Imperium sucks. I
Amen.
wouldn't even call them the good guys. There's some Xenos that are better than them. And I would say the Salamanders might be the nice guys.
Yeah.
I would say that. Next up, we have the Dark Angels. So they're the follower of the Lion. They got a new codex. They're very strong right now. I don't see them not being strong for a while. They're kind of all over the place. They're really durable. That's a big thing for them. So it's really hard to take them off the board. Their shooting is pretty solid. Their combat is pretty solid. They're not as good at shooting as Ultramarines. But I would say right now they're kind of the most versatile chapter. And just like all around, like if you want to get, I would say they're a really good place to start as well. Because there's so many options with them and what you can do.
Problem about them is their lore.
Yeah, so
I just hate Lionel Johnson.
Their kind of theme is their Space Knights.
Yes.
So if you like that idea, Dark Angels is definitely the way to go. I know so many people that love that. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, and another thing too about them is they actually only have like half of their legion because the other half became traitors.
Mm-hmm. And kind of on the edge.
Yeah, and to me, their actual traitor legion way cooler than the Dark Angels, but you know, if you like your knights, those are good guys.
They're the first legion, so that's like kind of their thing. Like we are the first. They're the Space Knights. They're from Caliban.
Yep. That's it.
They're really powerful.
And that's about as much personality as they have right there.
Yep. Then you have the Imperial Fists. Imperial Fists are pretty badass.
Cool.
Their Primarch is Rogel Dorn. They're really, really known for being good on the defense.
Yep.
So their primary aspect throughout the Horus Heresy was arming and defending Terra. So obviously they're very good at it, and you see throughout the books how they do that process. Right now they are the weakest legion in the Space Marines. I don't see them at all. I have not faced them at all in 9th edition. They just don't have any benefits like the other legions do. I think they're really good with heavy bolters, but it's not that great right now. So I wouldn't say they're a great place to start because they're typically the shootiest army out there, but they're being outshot by the Ultramarines and a lot of other armies. So,
but things could change.
They could
so
change.
If it's something that you think is that you would like, go for it.
If you're a big Imperial Fist fan, absolutely run Imperial Fists. Last and least, from the original legions, we have the Iron Hands. So the Iron Hands are pretty decimated at this point, but basically they're very good at working with machines and vehicles. They do a lot of forging, so they forge a lot of their own weapons. It's cool. It's badass.
Yeah.
Their like aesthetic is like constant.
They're like the only Space Marines that like try to like enhance their bodies with like fake material. A lot of the other ones are like very proud of being Astartes and how strong they are, and they're like, no, we can be stronger because our Primarch has like metal hands, so we need metal hands.
Yeah, they do some crazy shit. They're very aligned with the Mechanicum. They like to do that kind of stuff. They have a lot of stratagems with vehicles, so if that's something you're interested in, Iron Hands is the way to go. And they're really cool on the tabletop. I'd say they're pretty mid-ground as far as competitiveness goes right now. So a great place to start is the Iron Hands, and they're really cool with that. Additionally, one of the other legions that I think is important to bring up at this point, because they're pretty key and crucial in 9th edition, is the Black Templars. So Black Templars is a successor chapter of the Imperial Fist Legion, and they're worshipping the Emperor as a god, as a legion, or as a chapter. And
they're founded by Sigismund, right?
Sigismund, yeah. And so they go across the universe, or galaxy, not the universe, the galaxy on a constant crusade. Their crusade never ends. They're the Templars, right? That's what they do. So they're just badasses. They're constantly looking for stuff to kill, whether it be Xenos, Chaos, whatever it is. They're just trying to kill stuff. So the Black Templars, I feel like if there was ever like a point of view that is the most badass in the Warhammer 40K universe, it'd be the Black Templars.
And depending on when you're watching this, they are actually just recently was announced for new models. I think a codex is coming for them as well.
Yep. So very excited for the Black Templars. Another quick note real quick on Space Marines. If you're big into Primarchs, the only Space Marine chapter that is loyal that currently has a Primarch is the Ultramarines. Rabute Gilman is the only one that you can bring onto the tabletop at this point. And he's not, I mean, he's good. He's very good. But I don't think he's like an auto-include in Ultramarine list. So Just kind of a little all over the place there with the Marines.
But cool looking model if you're just get into like the painting and stuff.
Mhm.
Very cool looking.
And if just to remind you, you can buy a Space Marines box and paint them any of these legions you want, or your own legion, and that's super cool too. Maybe you're one of the Lost Legions or something.
Yeah, and if you build your own, you can pick which supplement you want to follow, right?
Yeah, I think like they give you options to like make your own like rules. I don't think any of them match the existing legions out there, but a lot of times you can say, oh, I'm going to be an Ultramarines list, but paint it a different way. That's fine. But I wouldn't paint it like a Space Wolf and then play it as Ultramarine. People won't like that. Kind of continuing on the Imperial side past the Space Marines, we have the Adeptus Sororitas. They're pretty big right now. So they're like the female Space Marines. They're not Space Marines.
Yeah, they call themselves the Sisters of Battle.
Yeah. So I think like this was kind of launched as an initiative to bring more women into the fold of 40K gaming, and it's had like amazing success. I know like the models are badass.
Yeah, they're very cool looking models.
Yeah. And they kind of are kicking ass right now. The sisters are doing very well in tournaments, and they're pretty big on like hand flamers. They have really cool mechanics like miracle dice. I don't know if that's still a thing, but they can basically like change dice to certain numbers.
Yeah, and whenever Gavin was in a tournament recently, and as I was watching the stream, we saw the Adeptus Sororitas, and one of the guys announcing was saying like how like good of like a defensive army this is.
Yeah, I can see that.
And
I have yet
like,
to face them, but
you could basically want to sacrifice some characters to like boost like the miracle thing.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure is how it was working. Sounds cool. I like them. I think it's an army I will probably eventually build.
A lot of their miniatures are like churches and shit. Like
Yeah.
they come down because they're the army of the ecclesiarchy. So they're supposed to be like the church's army. So basically they come down in these big churches as their drop pods. So everything they have is some sort of church related thing. So all of their tanks are like organs and stuff, and they fire out of the organ things.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's really cool. So they're very religious, very similar to the Black Templars. But that is the Adeptus Sororitas. Then we move into the more niche armies of the Imperium, and that is we'll start with the Custodians.
So the Custodes are badasses. So the Custodes are the Emperor's protectors, and they are supposed to be genetically better than all Astartes.
They're a very elite army, so in that case, they're also very cheap as well. You'll only need a few models to make your 2,000 point list, and each model there is going to be tough to kill. They're going to be dealing a lot of damage in both melee and shooting, but I know that this army also relies a lot on Forge World models at the moment to be competitive, so if you're interested in doing Forge World models, which is kind of like Games Workshop's secondary printing facility, that's something I know they're really big in Forge World right now as well. Competitive wise, they're always good. They have an 8th edition codex, and they're still one of the top 9th edition armies. It's just because they're very durable. It's really hard to make a durable army bad. So Custodians are really cool, very elite. They're the Emperor's protectors, and they do a really good job at pretending to be that way on the tabletop, I think.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Next, we have the Mechanicum.
Mechanicum are interesting,
Yes.
to say the least, especially their lore. So Mechanicum are the inhabitants of Mars, and their entire thing is building machines, and they follow like the religion where they worship this being called the Omnissiah. They're cool. They like to completely enhance their own bodies, so most of them are like mostly just machines at this point, with some pieces of flesh here and there.
Models are really cool. Everything in there is some sort of machine. Their like character models are like machine priests, so that's a lot of fun. And they have a lot of vehicles, a lot of interesting stuff. They can partner with knights and do some cool stuff there. So the Mechanicum it's a really unique army. So if you're into that kind of machine worshipping, everything you're bringing to the table is robotic in some way, the Mechanicum is the way to go. And it just so happens they are probably the strongest army in the game right now, if not tied for being the strongest army in the game. They're really shooty. You can play them in different ways. Some people play them with big robots and cool stuff, and a lot of people play them with squads of infantry shooting a bunch of really cool weapons because they're worshipping the weapons and shit. I don't know. It's really interesting how they do it. But you get lots of shots, lots of fire. So if you want to do some shooting phase stuff, Mechanicum is a good way to go. Next, we have the Grey Knights, and we have a Grey Knight player here.
Yes, so Grey Knights, really, really cool army. So, kind of like the background of the Grey Knights is they were created during the time of the Horus Heresy, and they actually have part of the Emperor's gene seed put inside of them. And they are really cool. They are from Titan, and they are also all Psychers.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is really cool for the game because they're doing psychic abilities is cool. They have several things that can like help enhance their abilities. They have psychic abilities that do damage, all kinds of things. They are really cool and really big in like teleporting.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have like half your army just come in later on and just wreak havoc. There's a lot of really cool things you can do with them. I love them. I think they're really cool. And most of their models all come in like box sets that you can just kind of change the box set for however you want it to fit. Their strike box does strike squads, interceptor squads, purgation squads, purifier squad, whatever. So a lot of diversity with what they have.
Yeah, as far as competitiveness goes, we really don't know. They just got a new box released. No one's really figured it out yet and figured out how amazing they are. We know that they're going to be good. We don't know if they're going to be earth-shattering yet or not.
They're also very big in melee, so their shooting's very okay. But once you're in someone's face, and there's a lot of ways to get in people's faces, especially with their new codex, you're going to be in melee a lot.
Yeah, they're not bad at anything, but they excel a lot at the psychic phase and the fighting phase, so it's always fun. So that's the Grey Knights. Most important thing with them is they all are psychers, so if you're looking for a psychic army, this is definitely a route to go. Then we have the Knights, the Imperial Knights. So they are some big models.
Giant robots. If you really like Pacific Rim, you will like some Knights.
Yeah, so there's actually quite a few people that I know that just love this aesthetic. And like if they got into Warhammer 40k, I know they would play Knights. You won't have a lot to do because you'll be working with very few models. A lot of times Knight players only bring like 10 models to the game. But you know, you're controlling these huge Knights that have a lot of firepower, a lot of melee output. They're just tanks, and it's really cool to watch. It's really cool to just see like how badass these are, and that's just how their playstyle is. So hyper elite.
Yeah,
to the point where like you're only bringing a couple or 2 or 3 big ones. So as far
It's
as
also a requirement that you have to make robot noises as you move them.
you have to. You know, they always say, all the players, oh, I'm just going to move this guy over here. Okay. So most Knight players I know, though, love their models. They're, like, obsessed with the Knights. So it's a very big cult following.
It's very cool.
Probably the weakest army in the game right now, I would say, though. The game rules have really just screwed over the Knights recently. They're very bad at scoring points, and they're very easy to score points against. Just kind of rule-wise, having a rough time. But they are still fun. Last, but certainly not least, for the Imperium, we have the Imperial Guard.
Yep. Also called Astra Militarum, right?
Yes.
So if you're on like the Games Workshop website, that's the name it'll be called.
Mm-hmm. They're the humans.
Yeah, and they have some really cool stuff. A bunch of tanks.
Yeah, so they play in a few different ways, but basically they're a hybrid of a horde army and a tank army. So humans are expendable in the 40k universe.
That they are.
Yeah, they are cannon fodder. So you would go to the front lines, and there's probably going to be quite a few guardsmen in your army, but at the same time it's going to be supported by tons and tons of tanks in the back line. They have so many cool tanks, but I would say by far the most expensive army to buy.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because not only do they have a lot of tanks, their tanks are not that many points. So you have to buy a lot of tanks. You have to buy a lot of guardsmen. So they've always been relatively solid. I don't think they're doing amazing right now. But of course, most people should know the backstory of the Imperial Guard. They are just the humans living in the 41st millennium, and a lot of people think that's cool. I think it's cool to play the people that are like, okay, how do we survive the grimdark future? You have space marines and chaos and crazy war machines. These are just dudes. Dudes and gals.
Yep. It's probably the like 5 guys, you know, that you went to high school with that all joined the military. That's
exactly. This is them ending up there. So it's a fun concept. A lot of people love that concept, and they've got cool things like mortars and missile launchers and all kinds of fun stuff. Lehman Russ tanks, good stuff. So that is it for the Imperium of Man. I would say if you want to like choose it by sector, the Imperium is the humans. You're fighting for humanity. Are they good?
We'll just say it's a grim dark future for a reason. It's because there's no one that's good.
I would say if you want to play the good guys, you probably want to play like the Salamanders or the Imperial Guard would be like the squads, maybe even like the Imperial Fists, the Ultramarines. Yep. You can stick to legions that are morally good.
Yeah.
And sections that are morally good. So next off, we'll move into the Armies of Chaos. So this is kind of the dark reflection, and these are the bad guys. And people love playing the bad guys in this game, and I like playing the bad guys.
The bad guys are cool.
Yeah. So first we have the Chaos Space Marines. So the Chaos Space Marines are a little bit different. A lot of people, and this is an argument I kind of want to talk about right now because I think it's interesting. A lot of people say that the Chaos Space Marines get a bad rap in Games Workshop because they don't have a lot of attention given to them. Because the Chaos Space Marines are all the traitor legions. We have the Emperor's Children, we have the Iron Warriors, the Alpha Legion. I'm going to get yelled at because I can't read my handwriting. The World Eaters, the Night Lords, and...
Did you say Word Bearers already?
Word Bearers. I'm so glad that was the one I forgot. So all these different traitor legions, and those in particular aren't represented by their own models. They're just represented by Chaos Marines, and each one of them typically does not get a codex supplement like the other Space Marines do. So it kind of sucks, but they each have their own individual rules. You know, you have like the Emperor's Children. I'm not even sure what they do. They have Noise Marines.
Those are really cool looking. I've seen some really awesome painted Noise Marines.
Like each one of them has their own, like the Alpha Legion, they have I Am Alpharius rules. Now, they will get supplements, like codex supplements, like the books that I showed in the previous video, but they won't get their own, like, this is the Salamanders codex.
Yeah.
You know, they won't get that. But they will get supplements down the line. The reverse of that, though, is some of the legions, specifically right now 2, potentially looking at 3 in the near future, get their own armies. And what I mean by own armies is they get unique models. This is better than the Marines, the Loyalist Marines, because, like I said, you can buy one box of Space Marines and paint it any legion, where specifically the Thousand Sons of Death Guard have their own unique models, and in my opinion, probably the best models in the game.
Yeah, both are really, really cool. The Plague Marines have like all this like weird like bile stuff all over them. Really sick looking. Thousand Sons have this like ancient Egyptian like look.
It's awesome.
Really badass looking.
So kind of going back to the actual Chaos Space Marines though, like I said, you have the Emperor's Children. You have the Black Legion, which is kind of a conglomerate of a lot of the traitor legions, primarily Sons of Horus. And then you have Iron Warriors, Alpha Legion, World Eaters, Night Lords, and Word Bearers. You can play any one of those, and you can make your own specific Chaos Renegade band or whatever you want to do there. What's nice about the Chaos Legions is it's very easy to incorporate demons into the Chaos Space Marine list, and you can kind of pick what Chaos God you're worshipping. You have a lot of really cool things you can mess around with there, and you can bring a lot of really interesting models. So if you're into the Chaos ordeal, like the heavy metal shit, you want to bring some demons, but you want to see some Chaos Space Marines, or maybe you like one of the Traitor Legions, the Chaos Marines are the way to go.
And their models are cool looking. I do want to throw that out there. They are really cool looking.
I personally think that the Chaos Marine models are cooler than the Space Marine models. And what's nice about it is eventually, I'm sure most of the Traitor Legions will get their own unique models.
Hopefully.
Which is going to be sick. I'm very excited for that. And I think it's well deserved. Good for them. Right now, though, competitively, they're really lacking in the area as all Space Marines, including the Thousand Sons and Death Guard now, have 2 wounds. The Chaos Space Marines only have 1 still.
Oof.
Yeah, so that is a big nerf to the Chaos Marines at the moment, but eventually that will be fixed. And we're waiting for a Chaos Marine Codex. I'm really hoping theirs comes out very soon.
Yes.
There's the desire there. Now going down a little further, let's start with the Thousand Sons. So we have Thousand Sons represented here in the Hexfire box. I'm a Thousand Sons player now. Thousand Sons, a few things about them. They're heavily psychic, so they're the most psychic, tied with the Grey Knights, I would say. And they just really dominate the psychic phase. And they're very offensively psychic, where the Grey Knights are more defensively psychic. So they're really cool at dishing out damage in the psychic phase there. They can ally themselves with Demons of Tzeentch, so it's all weird, strange stuff happening all the time. And they get Magnus.
Yeah, and Magnus is a badass.
Yeah, so that is another legion that gets the Primarchs, similar to the Ultramarines. But the Traitor Primarchs look way cooler than Recruit Element.
Yes, they do.
So definitely really cool if the psychic phase is something you're into. Again, we don't know how competitive they are right now. I would say they're going to be above average more than likely, but maybe not ground shattering like the Mechanicum. Next we have the Death Guard. Death Guard they're a Space Marine Trader Legion that follows Nurgle. And man, their models are sick.
Yeah, so Nurgle is the god of death and death and decay.
Yeah.
And like, that's really cool looking models.
All their models are bloated and diseased and flies everywhere and just horns coming out of their head at weird places.
It's really cool looking.
They did such a good job. I think the Death Guard are probably the best models in the game.
Yeah, they're really nice.
And of course, you get another Demon Primarch, Mortarion, and man, he is fucking sick looking.
Yeah, he is.
With this badass scythe. So Death Guard are fun. They're not insanely expensive. They play more of an elite.
And they have a combat box, so you can actually have like a decent army built from the box.
Yeah, and it's looking like $200 or something like that, maybe a little bit more, but you can get like almost a whole army out of that, which is very worth it. And they do a lot of stuff. They do melee really well. They do psychic. They are very, very durable. That's the biggest thing about the Death Guard is they can take hits. And so if that's kind of what you're looking for, that's kind of your move to go. They do have a little bit of horde aspect if you want to with their poxwalkers, but they can be elite, and of course Mortarion. Oh, and competitive wise, they're definitely at the top 5 for sure. Death Guard armies are winning tournaments today pretty easily, even against the Mechanicum. Now we have Chaos Demons. So Chaos Demons is a fun one. It can be integrated into a lot of different armies. It can be integrated into the Thousand Sons, can be integrated into the Death Guard, any Chaos Space Marine Legion. But one of the cool things about Chaos Demons that I find, and this is I actually think Chaos Demons is an amazing starting army, because you can play both Age of Sigmar and 40k with Chaos Demons. Yeah, because the Age of Sigmar Chaos Lords or Gods are the same ones as the one in 40k.
Nice.
So you can have like a Tzeentch army and play it in both of those games. And a lot of people do that. So I think Chaos Demons will probably be one of our next ones, so we can kind of move into the Age of Sigmar realm as well. So Chaos Demons is fun to play. They're psychers. Some of them are good at combat. Some of them are good at shooting. I don't think a bunch of them are good at shooting. A lot of it's very combat and psychic based. But lots of cool stuff there. And if you're a person that just loves walking around with demons, have fun.
Yeah.
That's the way to go.
They're cool looking too.
And then we have the last group for the Chaos is the Chaos Knights. Same thing as the Imperial Knights, but
just darker colors.
Yeah, they're they're suffering a little bit more than the Imperial Knights, I think, but not too bad. I know that the Chaos Demons, kind of going back a little bit, it depends on which Chaos God you follow, is how they're doing competitively. So, like Khorne's doing pretty bad. I think Nurgle's doing pretty bad, but like Tzeentch and Slaanesh are up there a little bit. I'm not sure. Yeah, so that's it for the Armies of Chaos. I love me some Chaos.
Chaos is cool.
You can't go wrong with Chaos. Just like you can't go wrong with Xenos.
Yes, and there are some very cool Xenos ones.
Me personally, I think Xenos are the coolest things. Because Chaos and Imperial, they get so much love. And you go into any game store, and 90% of the players are going to be running Imperial or Chaos armies. So it's so refreshing to see some Xenos players, and they're finally like picking up in tournaments, and they're becoming a lot more prevalent. And it's awesome to see. It gives some spice to the game. So start off with the Drukhari or the Dark Eldar.
Yeah, so Dark Eldar, they are pretty cool.
They are really. They're fucked up.
They are very messed up. So.
I'd rather get invaded by the Death Guard than I would some Drukhari.
Yeah, Drukhari are pretty messed up. They are basically enslaved to the Chaos God Slanesh.
They have to torture people in order to maintain their immortality. So they do some fucked up shit. They'll like turn people into furniture, but they're still alive.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want a Dylan couch? Look at this.
Look at that.
Everyone wants to sit on this.
Of course. Oh my god. Wow. Oh, absolutely. But yeah, they are pumping people full of drugs to keep them alive while they perform these rituals. So it's fucking crazy the way that Dark Eldar are. And they're insanely competitive right now. Tied
really cool looking armies too.
Yeah, they got some. They look like space pirates.
Yeah, they look like space pirates. They have a bunch of like ships and stuff, and as models, they look really cool.
They look like boats.
Yeah, exactly.
Actual space boats. And
cannons on the side.
Yeah, they have all kind of like heavy things on the boats. It's cool. It's fun to look at. So that's the Drukhari. They're the space pirates who turn people into couches for fun. They don't, I wouldn't say they're horde or elite. They're kind of mid-ground. They bring transports. They can bring monsters. They can bring all kinds of stuff. They're not durable though. They're like a glass cannon. So you can shoot them off the table pretty quickly. You can charge them into the table pretty quickly. But some of their characters especially are amazing in close combat. So you really want to keep them at a distance. Then we have the Tau. Hey, we got some Tau up here.
Mm-hmm.
It's my first army. Tau don't really have any lore. The Tau were created to bring the Japanese into the market, and it turns out it just brought the weebs. So, I'm not a weeb, personally, but I really like the idea of like mech suits.
Yeah.
It's kind of badass.
They look cool. They're good looking models.
So, the Tau, when you play them, you're looking at battle suits, these giant robots, so very similar to Pacific Rim kind of stuff. And you get robots anywhere from this big to robots that are this big to robots that are this big, and then you get a Tau Titan that's like this big. All kinds of different sized robots. They are no psychic. Their melee is very awful. They don't have a lot of movement shenanigans, so they just shoot. They shoot, and shoot. So if you want to be a master of the shooting phase and like figure all that out, Tau is the way to go. I really enjoy them. Most of their stuff flies. Competitiveness, they are probably one of the lowest 3 armies in the game right now. Top 3 weakest.
Probably.
They're doing pretty bad, but
no codex yet though.
Yeah, no codex. So we'll see what happens when their 9th edition codex comes out. We'll see. But they're still fun. Lots of fun. Then we have the Necrons. Oh man, we could talk for like 3 hours about Necrons.
Necrons are cool.
Necrons are probably they're the most ancient race that you can play. They've imbued.
I think it's just imbued.
They imbued their souls.
That's it.
Into metal constructs. So they're like metal Egyptians actually, because they're like thousand suns,
they're like,
but green.
like metal like skeletons.
Yeah. So they have all these big pyramids that float around space and all kinds of crazy stuff like that, and their technology is insanely advanced. And it's really hard to kill a Necron because they can like come back to life because you just killed their body and not their soul or some shit.
Yeah, they're really cool. Like, even on the tabletop, they have an ability to bring one back to life.
Bring multiple back to life.
Oh, you can do multiple.
You can do that a lot. So pretty much any time a Necron dies on a tabletop, you roll a dice on a 5 or 6, it just comes back. So, yeah, they're very scary. They're very powerful with the reanimation stuff. They're about mid-tier competitive level. I've seen all kinds of various ways to play Necrons. They're one of the armies that I think are in a really good spot to where you can play them any way you want to. You can bring elites. You can bring big name characters. They have a Silent King now.
Mm-hmm.
He's supposed to be very similar to a Primarch. I faced him in a tabletop, and man, he's scary.
Yeah, and they also can bring in the Catan, right?
Yeah, they have Catan shards, so they do psychic stuff. They're technically not psychers, but they do all kinds of really cool magic shenanigans. Just like super awesome models too, and they're super easy to paint. Like really good, like getting started army.
Yeah.
Between Space Marines and them, would be something I choose.
Yeah, and one thing, like if you go to a game store, you'll probably see the starter box where it's half Space Marine, half Necron box. And it's probably because both of them are very easy to paint and are probably the two most popular models, if I were to guess.
Yeah, Space Marines definitely are up there. I would say Necrons are not far off. I would say the Necrons are probably the most popular Xenos.
Yeah, it makes sense.
As of right now. Then we have the Eldar. So I'm not a big fan of the Eldar models. They're really old. They're
I
resin
kind
models.
of like them.
They're cool to look at. Like they're good models. They're just old.
Yeah.
I think they need some updates. So a lot of people argue that they don't because they look fine. I just don't like the material they're made out of most of the time. Eldar are very good in the psychic phase. They're very up there as far as psychic capability goes. They're good in combat. And there's like sub-factions of Eldar. You have the Harlequins, you have the Ynnari.
Harlequins are cool. They're like the Jokers.
Yeah, they wear like jester outfits and shit like
really
that.
Cool looking.
Yeah, so they're really interesting models, and they're like space elves. The Jakar are like the space dark elves.
Yeah.
Is what it is. So they are suffering pretty badly in the tabletop right now as well. They're not doing too great because they don't have a 9th edition codex. But they're really cool. They're one of the oldest races as well, well before the humans. They're very snotty.
Yep, they think they're the best.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how the Eldar. Their models are badass though. They have really cool tanks. I don't know how useful they are, but they're really cool looking tanks. Next up we have the Orcs. Fucking Orcs, man.
Orcs are cool.
They are cool.
I mean, they're green. They're awesome. There's a bunch of them. Really cool models. Some really cool looking vehicles.
You could do anything you want with the Orcs. I think the Orcs have the second most models behind the Space Marines.
I can see it,
Like
because there's a bunch.
Yeah, like you can do hordes of Orc boys. You can bring in giant Stampa things. They have the coolest vocabulary. Every Orc player I've ever played refuses to not speak in the Orc vocabulary. He's always like, oh,
Daka daka.
I'm a stompa here, or whatever. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man.
Alright, now we're role playing. Awesome.
The claw. I'm like, alright, but people get into it. They love that stuff. And their terrain is really cool. Orcs have made such a huge impact. And they're like, the lore and concept of the way they feel is like they're idiots.
Yeah.
But they're okay with being idiots. Like, for instance, like, they would build the most insane machinery. And the Imperium would be like, how the fuck did they get that to work?
Yeah, I mean, they're honestly like cavemen.
But they're geniuses.
Yeah.
Same, like, they're cavemen and geniuses. Like, they just think about electricity, and electricity happens. I love the Orc culture and the way it is. Like, they're really cool. They're fun, is what I would say they are.
Yep,
Competitiveness, I think they're going to be pretty competitive after their new rule book. I think they're going to be up there as far as, like, top 5 easily. Tyranids.
I don't know, shot them.
Bugs. If you like badass looking bug models, and they are badass looking.
They're really cool looking.
They're just a bunch of bugs doing crazy stuff. They have psychic abilities. You can buy some. I faced in a tournament big ass bugs.
Yeah, and they are a horde army.
They are a horde army. You can play them less horde, but more than likely you're going to play them as a horde army. So there's a lot of painting. If that's not something you're into. We don't know how many Tyranids there are. That's kind of their lore. It's like they're coming in from outside of the galaxy, and we think we're about to just get
they're
swarmed.
supposed to be like destroying galaxies.
Mm-hmm.
So they're coming all around the good old Milky Way.
They could potentially be the greatest threat to our galaxy, and we have no idea. That's a lot of fun. Competitiveness right now, they're kind of mid-tier. They need They need a new book as well, but they're fun. I faced a couple of them, in tournaments. It's really interesting to see them holding their ground.
Yeah.
Doing some cool stuff. And then Gene Stealer cults. So Gene Stealer cults are like the Tyranids trying to infiltrate a planet. So they have like this religious cult startup, and they try to get people to start worshiping the Tyranids. And then when the Tyranids arrive, the Gene Stealer cults are like, "Oh, thank you for finally coming," and then the Tyranids eat them.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I don't like their lore because they seem like they're not a threat. They're like a threat to an individual planet.
Yeah.
They're not like a united army in any way. So a Gene Stealer cult makes more sense in like a kill team situation for me, or Necromunda or something like that. But they're really interesting. So their models are basically like Mad Max
I like it.
style models, and they have a lot of like vehicles and tanks that they've kind of kitted out to be their own. They're all over the place, and half of them are humans and half of them are like Tyranid looking things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to see all this. But that is, they might be the worst army in the game right now, though. Really easy to kill. Yeah. So they need a lot of love, not just rules wise, but lore wise, I think as well. So that's all the armies.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot.
There's a lot to choose from. It can be a lot. So go to the Games Workshop website.
Yeah. Look at the models. Think about
see what's cool.
what. Yeah. Look at what's cool, what sounds most interesting, what lore sounded cool to you, and try it out. I mean, if you don't even want to start off with like a big old combat box, get like one of the small, like my guys have the Strike Squad box, just buy a Strike Squad box, put it together, see if it's something that you enjoy doing, and if it is, grab a Codex. Try to build up to like a 500-point thing to get like a little kill team going on. Try to play with a friend, go to a local game store. People will work with you. Everyone wants... people want more people in the hobby.
We love teaching people how to play.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing at game stores. We would love, like, one thing I would highly suggest doing is going onto Facebook and finding Facebook groups in your local area. Just, like, for instance, we're from Indianapolis. So Indianapolis 40K.
Yeah.
Boom.
Both on the Indy 40K one.
Another thing I would suggest doing is if you like an army, a lot of times they sell multi-boxes with 2 different armies. Find a friend.
Yeah, see if the friend will split the other army with you.
There you go.
Or maybe if it's an army you'd kind of also interested in, build it too.
There you go.
Enjoy it.
For sure. So I think that's all we have for you today. If you have any questions about the armies or want our advice on what army you should choose based off of kind of like what you're wanting or what you're wanting to do, let us know in the YouTube comments. Reach out to us on our email at theheresiolodge@gmail.com.
You can tweet at us at Heresy Lodge as well. You can even get on our Discord, which is pinned to our Twitter. And really, if you just want to also just hang out with us, feel free to do those too, because we like to hang out with you guys. It's fun for us, and hopefully it's fun for you.
Yep, look out for our next video where we'll actually be talking about the rules and getting started and playing some of the game.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome, guys. Hope you enjoy your week whenever you watch this, and have a good one.